Good morning, good afternoon, good evening internet, and you join me on a windy afternoon ride. We're taking the road to Las Menas, but it's a different road to the one we used in the previous video. This is the new road we'll be taking, but I'll get back to that in a moment. As you may be able to hear, it is very windy today, so I'll try and keep the speed down so that you can still hear me. So the topic of today's video is, does the Meteor have an electronic speed limiter? And based upon my own personal experience, I can categorically say yes, it does. So how did I come to this conclusion? Well, as you may recall, in a previous video I went out to Almeria to take part in the Royal Enfield One ride, group ride, and it just so happened that on the day that I rode out there, to get there I have to ride over some mountains, and then once I get the other side of the mountains it's motorway to my destination, to the bike shop. So on the morning I was riding out there, I was just enjoying the bike too much and the mountains too much, and I was just really cruising and not going fast at all. And then I got the other side of the mountain and I looked at the clock and I thought, oh no, that's going to be very tight. So basically, as soon as I got the other side of the mountain and I got onto the motorway, I basically pinned the bike for half an hour. I rode as fast as the bike would go, and I got to the bike shop with minutes to spare. So anyway, in the course of doing this, obviously I was flat out on the bike for the first time ever, and I can confirm that the top speed I reached was 121 possibly on the speedometer, which I think other people have measured to be about 117, 118 kilometers per hour measured with GPS. But obviously I was riding the motorway the whole stretch. It was about half an hour stretch where I was just absolutely flat out as fast as the bike would go. And there was a downhill stretch on this section of motorway, quite a long gradual downhill stretch. So obviously I arrived at this stretch of downhill motorway with the throttle pinned, doing nearly 120 kilometers per hour. And normally when you do that on a motorcycle pinned going downhill, unless you're actually on the rev limiter, you would expect the bike to pick up some speed. And it did. It went from maybe 120 to 121, and the throttle was still wide open. But as soon as the needle crept beyond 120 kilometers per hour, you could just feel some engine retardation kick in, and it slowed you back down to 120 kilometers per hour according to the speedo. If you look here on the left, that's the previous road to Las Menas that featured in my pure engine sound video. That's the old road. We're now going to Las Menas via the new road, which is a longer way round, but it's a faster road. So I thought I'd share that one with you. So yeah, as I continued down this downhill stretch, basically this cycle repeated itself about 5, 6, 7 times. Basically the speed would go up to 121 nearly. I've still got the throttle pinned, and then you can feel the bike slow down, back down to 120. Then the force of gravity lets you accelerate back up to 121. Then the bike slows down again, and it just did this several times, and it was just so obviously electronically limiting my speed. Going downhill I wasn't able to go any faster, so there's no point in even trying. It's quite a smooth limiter. It feels as though they've probably got something in the software which says once you're in 5th gear, once you exceed so and so many revs in 5th gear, we'll mess with the ignition timing to make sure the engine won't pull any faster. So it was quite subtle. It wasn't as harsh as hitting a rev limiter. It was quite a subtle retardation. Basically they're just stopping the engine from revving any higher in 5th gear. So there was no question in my mind. I mean, that was definitely electronically limited. So the speed of the Meteor is limited in the software, no question about that in my mind. So let's talk about the consequences of that. What can we conclude? Well, for me personally, it doesn't really matter because 120 k's it will do just about, and I don't really want to be going any faster than that anyway. So the top speed doesn't really bother me, and if I have to use the motorway, normally I'd be quite happy to be doing 95 to 100 kilometers per hour, and the bike will do that fairly comfortably. So the fact that the top speed is limited doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think the major consequence of this will be that people that manufacture tuning parts for Royal Enfields are going to have their work cut out justifying why you should buy their tuning parts, because normally people are looking for a performance increase, quite often with a view to lengthening the gearing, so getting more power so that they can pull a longer gear and maybe get a bit more top speed for people that want to do a lot of high speed roads all the time. That would be one reason why you might go for tuning, because I don't feel as though up to 120 kilometers an hour I don't feel that the Meteor is lacking anywhere. I mean, it's just such a well-rounded engine. I don't really see why you would want to tune it, other than if you were determined to increase the gearing and maybe get some more top speed out of it, in which case you would need more power to pull that longer gear. So I think the tuning market is going to struggle to manufacture and sell products for the Meteor, although of course you can't rule out that somebody's going to try and decompile the software, the engine software, and maybe remove that speed limiting code, which could be done if you could somehow decrypt the compiled code. You could then remove the source code for the speed limiter. If somebody did that, then obviously that opens up the whole tuning market once again. But I think as things stand, there's not really any point trying to get more performance, because your speed is still going to be limited, and I feel as though the Meteor gets up to 120 k's plenty quick enough. I mean, there's no real need to change anything about the performance up to the top speed. Everything's absolutely fine for a 350. It's quite incredibly powerful, really. It feels really good. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether there is a dearth of tuning products for the Meteor. I think there might be, but I don't really see that being a problem, because if you really are looking to do a lot of high speed work, like 120 k's plus all the time, I think it's unlikely you'd pick the Meteor in the first place. It's not really the bike for that at all. So I'm quite happy with the Meteor as it is. I won't be sad if there are no tuning options for it. If I want to go fast, I'll have to buy a different kind of bike, so I don't really see the point in tuning the Meteor, especially now that it's quite clear that the top speed is limited electronically anyway, so any benefits you're going to get aren't going to really solve your problem if you want to ride faster. So this is a fourth gear road normally. It's quite a nice open windy road. Pretty much leave it in fourth gear up here today, barring any gravel in the road or anything dodgy. As long as you keep your speed up in the bends, it'll pull fourth gear through here, no problem. So what else have I got to tell you? I did do some maintenance on the Meteor. I decided that probably about 5 mil of chain tension was required. I was getting towards the 3 centimeters of free play, so I just wanted to take a little bit of that out. So I did actually adjust the chain the other day. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Royal Enfield do-it-yourself workshop guides, where on YouTube they have videos of how to do various jobs. And one of the videos was how to adjust the chain tension on the Meteor 350. Well, when I adjusted the chain tension on my Meteor 350, it was just like that video, just with a lot more swearing and a lot more skin knuckles. Yeah, it was quite interesting. Something I discovered is that the rear spindle nut is right behind the exhaust silencer, and there was no way I could get a socket set in there. So I ended up having to use the torque wrench, which would have been even better. There's very little space in it, so I ended up literally having to use the 24mm spanner that came with the bike. So the spanner with the extension tube, so to my surprise, with a little bit of aggression and gritted teeth, I did actually manage to loosen off the spindle nut with that tool. So I was quite surprised by that, but it was just as well because I didn't have anything else that fitted. My spanners all stopped at 22mm, so I didn't have an open-ended spanner or a ring spanner, which might have been quite useful. So in the end I did the whole job just for giggles. I did the whole job with the supplied Royal Enfield toolkit, and it was absolutely doable. I just made a terrible mistake, which was basically the cause of all my swearing and frustration. It should have been a 5-minute job to take out 5mm of chain slack. I should have just loosened everything off, put a quarter of a turn on each adjuster, checked the tension, called it good, tightened everything up, job done. Unfortunately, I made the fatal mistake of checking the alignment guides on the left and right hand side of the swing arm. And I saw that from the factory, or from the dealer, I don't know who touched it last, but I had like 3 lines from the back on one side and 2 and a bit on the other side. So if those alignment guides are to be trusted, that would have meant that the wheel was out of alignment. So of course, me being me and wanting everything perfect, I tried to make sure I could get 2.5 lines on each side, and then everything would be dandy. Well, that was a total pain in the end, because I tried to put more on the one side, and then that ended up pulling the chain so tight that there was nothing you could do. There was no more movement. When you slacken off the adjusters, the wheel doesn't really move back on its own, so you have to kind of, when you slacken off both adjusters and you've gone too far forward with the adjustment, then you end up having to kind of pull the wheel back yourself, get everything squared up, and then faff about trying to get equal amounts of movement on each of the chain adjusters to get the alignment lines matched up. And instead of taking 5 minutes, I spent about an hour. And every time I nicked up the spindle bolt, the last little bit of the spindle bolt, the other side where you're supposed to hold it to stop the spindle from moving, you're supposed to put a screwdriver through there and pull against it as you're tightening. Well, at least twice, that last little pinch up bit of tightening the spindle nut, the other side just moved. So then you check the tension again and everything's too tight. So then you have to loosen everything off again, start again, and then really be careful that when you're tightening the spindle nut again to finish the job off, you have to really make sure the other side can't move, otherwise it just throws everything back out of alignment and the chain tension goes totally OTT. So yeah, basically I really regretted even looking at the alignment marks. I should have just put a quarter of a turn on each side and said, well, it's been fine up until now, why shouldn't it be fine in the future? So I don't know now whether the wheel's more in alignment or more out of alignment. I mean, if they've set the wheel up in the factory on some kind of a jig, maybe 2.5 on one side or 2 and a bit on one side and 3 on the other side, is the wheel being aligned? Who knows? But as a dumb user, we're supposed to set the chain so that the marks are the same on each side, so I did that. But whether that means the wheel's more in alignment or more out of alignment, I've actually got no idea. As well as that, I did the clutch adjustment, because I felt the clutch could just do with a little bit less play after 2,500 kilometers. Again, there's another Royal Enfield video about how to do that. I would recommend you don't watch that, because that basically seems to be how you would set the clutch if you'd fitted a new cable. So they're actually slackening everything right off, and then telling you how to adjust it properly from there. Basically, the only step you need to do in your general maintenance, once the clutch cable's been set by the factory, just use the adjuster at the lever end. I mean, that's literally all you need to do, that very last step of that video. All the rest of it was interesting to know, but it was totally unnecessary, because you can assume that the clutch cable has been set correctly by the factory. Well, since the various roads leading to Las Menas have been shown in at least 2 of my videos so far, in this video I thought I'd show you some more impressions of my actual destination. So what is Las Menas? Well, Las Menas is actually an abandoned iron ore mining community. Iron ore was mined here from the late 1800s until the mine finally closed in 1968. At its peak, nearly 3,000 people lived and worked in this mining community. Here you can see the workers' accommodation blocks. These are unrestored, slightly derelict ones. And here you can see renovated accommodation blocks, which for a while were available as holiday rentals. As a fully fledged community with nearly 3,000 inhabitants, Las Menas also required all of the usual amenities of any community. Various ruins can be found on the site. Las Menas once had schools, a bakery, a general store, a laundry, a hospital, its very own police station with its own police force, a chapel which you see here, and a cinema. Las Menas is situated in the Los Filabres mountain range above the town of Cerrón. This whole region is quite popular with hikers, so Las Menas has a campsite and several amenities to attract tourists to the area. So now you know a little bit more about Las Menas, which is at the end of some very nice roads. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments section how you feel about the Meteor's top speed being restricted. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet but would like regular updates on my life with my Meteor 350, hit the subscribe button. It won't cost you anything and you'll be notified whenever I have new videos on the channel. Take care, ride safely, and I look forward to seeing you again in a future video. Bye bye.